Now, today, the Biden administration unveils the first part of its long-awaited China trade policy. Relations between the US and China have remained strained, and President Biden has kept the Trump administration's tariffs in place on around $360 billion in Chinese goods, as well as adding further sanctions in response to human rights abuses. Let's discuss this story now with Professor Shirley Yu, Director of the China-Africa Initiative at the London School of Economics. Professor, good to have you with us today. So what do you think we're going to hear by way of strategy from the Biden administration on trade with China?
Good morning, Anita. Tai is expected to announce that China did not fulfill the full purchase commitment according to the US-China Phase 1 trade deal. But I think it also makes no sense now for China to try to rush in to fulfill the order by December 31st. I think any announcement of tariff removal is out of the question. But it's possible that Tai may announce unilateral punitive measures in order for China to comply. But now the two sides have really 3 months to come to a substantial Phase 2 trade deal. This is highly unlikely now, given the complexity and the urgency, and tariffs are not good for the U.S. inflation. It's certainly not good for Chinese employment. So this is really a lose-lose situation here.
We mentioned in the introduction that President Biden has kept some of the Trump administration's tariffs in place. But more broadly, how do you think the US approach under Biden is going to differ from the Trump administration?
Well, it's really likely that Biden will continue essentially the Trump era policy going into the future. It would be too late for Biden, I think, to reverse course at this point. But the fundamental issue for Biden is this, really. Any US president would not want to be remembered as the US president that dethrones the United States from the commanding heights of the global economy. That would be a really embarrassing thing to be remembered as. And so from this perspective, either Trump, Biden, or any future US president, I think their vision for China is aligned in a way.
We're having a few issues with the line. We'll try one more question, Professor, and hopefully it will stay good. But what we're seeing playing out with these discussions over trade is the much bigger picture of the power struggle now between these superpowers, isn't it, frankly?
Oh, absolutely. I was just about to say, Anita, that China is prepared for a prolonged struggle against the United States. When President Xi made the prediction about the rise of the East and the decline of the West, the President Xi didn't mention the rise of the East and the rise of the West. And so we have to be clear that this is not about forming global consensus or any US-China reconvergence. China fundamentally sees itself and the US on the opposite sides of the global destiny there. But really interestingly, when it comes to trade, I think the US-China position have completely swapped in over 2 years' time. In 2019, it was the Trump administration that demanded a comprehensive approach in addressing the China trade issues. And China said, wait a minute, why don't we just address the trade imbalance first and leave all the thorny issues till later? Therefore, we saw the combination of the US-China Phase 1 trade deal. But today, China passed a 2 demands list to the Deputy Secretary of State, Wendy Sherman, during her Tianjin visit. And Chinese foreign minister said, well, unless every single item on the 2 demand lists are addressed, we are really not interested in discussing any other subjects, including climate change. This was made very clear during Kerry's visit to China. And on the other hand, it is the Biden administration that are calling for a piecemeal approach to China now. We will engage in some, competing others, and confronting the rest. And I think this Biden-era China policy is really bringing all the strategic ambiguity that the relationship doesn't need at this moment.
Professor, thank you so much for your time today. Professor Shirley Yu from the London School of Economics.